Hi, my name is Trout. I do lectures on physics and bodywork, and I'm going to answer a question that we commonly hear as bodyworkers. How did you know where to put your hands? So as a client, you've probably noticed that you had a sensation or wanted some attention, and your bodyworker somehow knew to put their hand there, and you thought, how did you know where to put your hands? As a bodyworker, sometimes while you're working, you'll be focusing or thinking about what you're doing, and your hand will somehow go to exactly the right place. Your client will say, how did you know where to put your hand? And you'll say, what do you say? This is a class about that answer. So, this lecture is part of a much larger lecture, so I'm going to be leaving out some details and skipping a few things. I can cover those in other lectures later. You can always ask questions and I can answer them in the question and answer forum. So, how did you know where to put your hands? The first part of that answer is we're going to go to our opposites list. Every bodyworker should have a list of opposites. As a bodyworker, you're definitely going to want to make a list of opposites. It will come in handy in more ways than you can imagine. I'm going to show you a quick version. So I'm going to start with positive and negative. And the reason is because all of life is based on polarity. All of life is based on the union of two opposites. So this is a good start. Healing traditions call these different things. Possibly the most common one you've heard is yin and yang. I want to be clear that negative does not mean bad, as though you had a negative attitude. It just means like a battery, one side does one thing and one side does the other. What each side does, we'll describe here. So another way to look at this, male, female. So male, female could also be mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, boy, girl, masculine, feminine, all sorts of things like that. It doesn't have to be the one thing I write down. Right and left. Right is positive, left is negative. You might notice that right is on the left side, left is on the right side. That's because I use this as a mirror image. Another thing I use is opening and closing. Relaxation versus focus. Let's say outgoing versus incoming. This also is expressive versus receptive. So these are the couple of the things that we're going to look at. I'll show you the list that I use often. When I teach my class, I am always going to have my list of opposites because I'm always using it to explain something or another. Here's a handful of the ones that I use. Some of them are pretty obvious. Some of them are a little bit more esoteric, like broken and unbroken from Chinese medicine. In fact, the I Ching tells that even though they have a wealth of information, it all boils down to yin and yang, the union of two opposites. When you have a wave coming in one direction, and you have an equal and opposite wave coming in the other direction, they form what's called a standing wave, and that standing wave is what allows for all communication to happen. And communication is even as simple as looking at something. So again, all healing traditions use the union of two opposites as a major point for healing and for understanding the metaphysics of life. We are going to do the same thing here. Go ahead and take a little time, make your own opposites list, make it however you want. Look through any kind of healing traditions and see what works for you, but definitely make a list because you'll be using it. So for us, we're going to use a short version of the opposites list. Things like yin, yang, right, left, positive, negative. Positive, negative is not good and bad. Positive, negative is like a magnet or electricity, in and out, positive and negative. Male, female could also be masculine, feminine, mom, dad, brother, sister. Focus and relaxation, open and closed. This is the ones we're going to focus on. Relaxation is vasodilation. When you relax, all of your veins, all of your arteries, all of your pathways increase. These are pathways for memory and ideas as well. When you're focused, your pathways become smaller, vasoconstriction. Because focus is aiming information at what you want, solving a problem. Relaxation is getting information. So these are the two aspects of the positive negative list, right and left list that we're going to use. If you notice that right is on the left and the left is on the right, that's because I'm usually thinking of looking at a person, and so I need a mirror image. So, when your client lies on the table, they go from a state of being tense to a state of relaxation. Same with anyone. As you lay down to start to breathe deep with some nice music on, maybe some lavender in the air, your body goes from being focused to relaxed. So your body will become a sea of negative. Now, none of us can totally relax. We will always have places in our body where we hold tension, or where our body can't seem to gain its full range of motion, and other aspects that we consider to be what we're not looking for in health. Those will remain positive in the body. So your client, which may or may not look like a gingerbread man, will be laying on the table, almost completely relaxed, but there will be 3 or 4 places on their body that stay tense and stay positive. Our job as body workers is to become very relaxed, very open, and available to listen to all information. If you do it right, your hand becomes an entity of negative. So, when you put your hand over your client, their negative will repel your negative in every place. If you listen closely enough, you won't be able to touch your client, but your hand will go right to the 3 places where the positive pulls your hand. So this is how you experience it as a body worker. You'll have your hands on someone, and you'll be thinking about how to help, and your hand will slide to the right place. Your other hand will move somewhere, and your client will say, "How did you know where to put your hand?" And you will look, and you will think, "I have no idea." But this is what's happening. It's purely a mechanical concept of magnetism. So, to make this maybe a little more clear, we have 2 very weak magnets. One is a person, and one is a hand. So let's say they're both negative. How quiet would you have to listen? How close would you have to get to hear if those magnets were attracting or repelling? You'd have to focus very hard. That's why it requires so much focus for us to do our body work, because we're listening to a very quiet thing. So the reason why we all understand this, the reason why we all know this phenomenon, is because we've all played with those 2 magnets that didn't match. We've all tried to push them together and felt them fall apart. And the reason why that is such a satisfying experiment is because you're learning a very vital law of physics, which is called the inverse square law. And this has to do with every force, from magnetism to electricity to gravity to pretty much anything else works on this inverse square law in physics. Now there's variations of it, of course, but this is why that is such a satisfying game to play, because you're actually learning about physics. And this is the same reason why you know where to put your hands, because you don't know where to put your hands, but the magnetic aspect of our beings will pull us right to it. They won't know, and you won't know, but maybe this will help you answer that question next time. That seem okay?